What is going on, everybody? My name is Kneeckoh, and welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet VGC Series 2 video. I am still sick, so today I want to talk about another Pokemon that I think is going to see an increase in use in Series 2, just looking at the results of Orlando. It's actually a Pokemon I've been testing quite a bit because it's really fun to use and is really good into a lot of stuff right now. That Pokemon is Tyranitar. You probably know by the title and by the thumbnail, but this Pokemon is actually crazy right now. So if this is your first time here on the channel, make sure you are subscribed for more daily competitive Pokemon content from me in the future. We try to hit the goal of 5,000 subs by July, so all help is appreciated. And leave a comment below. What Pokemon do you think is just going to be a dominating force in Series 2 as the meta progresses? But let's get into it. So the teams that you're seeing Tyranitar really pop up a lot on throughout Series 2, especially at the Orlando event, is any team that features a Great Tusk. You notice that all the teams Tyranitar are featured on have a Great Tusk on them, and that's because it pairs very, very well together. If you look at Great Tusk and what this Pokemon does, goes out, sets really strong earthquakes after Tailwind set. Pair this with Tyranitar, whose favorite Terra type right now is flying, and you have a really strong duo that is able to lay out earthquakes as well as deal big damage with whatever Tyranitar is running, because Tyranitar has such high base defenses that you can really, and base attack, that you're able to go out and make this more of a bulky support Pokemon for Great Tusk, and kind of go out and use this to just cover weaknesses for this particular Pokemon. Not to mention that setting Sandstream, Great Tusk doesn't take any damage from it, but it boosts the defenses even more, the special defense specifically for Tyranitar, to make this just a menace to whatever is trying to take it out. And if you look at what some of the most popular Pokemon are right now, Fluttermane having like 50% usage rate, Iron Bundle having within the high 40s usage rate, you're taking a lot of special attack damage. These two Pokemon are getting walled pretty hard by T-Tar right now. So this is an example of like a really solid T-Tar build right now, right? We have Assault Vest that's going to make us more specially defensive for those threats that are coming at us, like Fluttermanes, Iron Bundles, things like that. But then we also have just a lot of health investment here. We're not particularly worried about speed because we're going to be so bulky that we're going to be able to take hits, but massive amount of health and tons of attack, so that we can go in and start knocking out some of these bigger threats. If you look at the moves on this particular Tyranitar, like Rock Slide, super effective in the bundle, but also hits the other opposing Pokemon. So if they lead like a Fluttermane bundle combo, if you hit them with a Rock Slide, both are taking significant damage from that attack, right? Significant damage. But then you have like Crunch on here that plays very well into like Indeedee and Armarouge combos, because this Pokemon just doesn't care about Indeedee and Armarouge at all, unless the Armarouge has like Energy Ball, and even still you Terra Flying in that scenario and you're able to keep running through them. Plays very well into that. Terra Flying, Terra Blast, super good into opposing Great Tusk. Fighting type is a huge weakness for this Pokemon. Annihilate plays very well into that as well. And if Annihilate Terra Fires, you have Rock Slide coverage. Heavy Slam's really great right now because, Fluttermane is everywhere. So being able to slam into a Fluttermane that doesn't Terra, and a lot are running Terra Fairy, so you'll get away with it either way. But slamming into that Fluttermane is so physically frail that you're able to knock it out so easily with this attack. So this is just a really good option into a lot of popular stuff right now. Like I mentioned, here's some big ones. This one gets knocked out by Heavy Slam. Bundle gets knocked out by Rock Slide, right? And now these do have super effective moves into T-Tar, but again, you're going to be so defensive that you're going to be able to handle a couple hits from these Pokemon, especially if you position yourself correctly around them. But then other Pokemon right now, I just talked about Talonflame in a video recently. Talonflame is really good right now and hates taking a Rock Slide. Rock Slide OHKOs Talonflame. Unless it Terras, and even still, this is a very frail Pokemon. It's going to take big damage from a Rock Slide, and its favorite Terra right now seems to be Terra Ghost, so you just crunch it and you just remove it from the field, right? Just a really, really strong Pokemon right now, which I honestly wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting this Pokemon to continue being so good in Series 2. We saw a fair bit of it paired with like Lycanroc and stuff in Series 1, and just on a handful of other teams as well. If you look at things like Garchomp, that was very popular. Like, this was a fairly common Pokemon in Series 1, and I figured we'd see a drop off in it, but it's actually seen a fair amount of use with some of the newer Pokemon, especially when you consider like Great Tusk does a lot of the same stuff that Garchomp would. You're able to go in and you're able to, EQ and do that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it pairs well together because of the Terra nature of it. but it's just kind of something that can also switch into some attacks. Like if a flying type attack's coming in to a Great Tusk, you know, like from a Roaring Moon, Tyranitar comes out and walls that completely. Roaring Moon has a very difficult time dealing with Tyranitar. So it's just a really good switch-in option to a lot of stuff that's very popular. Like fairy type attacks from Fluttermane do pretty decent damage to T-Tar, but I think it's still like a 3-shot. If remembering the calc, it's still like a 2 or 3-shot kill for Fluttermane to knock out T-Tar. So you're able to do a lot of work to this very frail Pokemon before it's actually able to knock you out. Another duo that I mentioned this is really good playing into is Indeedee and Armarouge. Because again, both of these Pokemon don't like T-Tar. Indeedee really can't do anything to it unless it's a Dazzling Gleam Indeedee. And even then, it's not going to do significant damage because you're not really putting a whole lot of investment into your special attack on an Indeedee. You're mainly using it as a support Pokemon, and you just kind of eat those hits up. And Armarouge is basically forced into a Terra unless it wants to take Rock Slides, right? So then it's forced into a Terra, typically Terra Grass. And unless this Pokemon like has something that is like ready to take out Tyranitar, Armor Cannon and Expanding Force. Not that. Armor Cannon. Armor Cannon and Expanding Force. Expanding Force doesn't even hit T-Tar. And Armor Cannon does not very effective damage to Tyranitar, right? So you're having a scenario where you're able to just kind of wall out this combo pretty effectively with one Pokemon. And you're forcing the Terra very, very early. And if you do force the Terra, the nice thing is you can Terra Flying and Terra Blast it after you get Indeedee out of the way, and you're able to handle just this whole combo super effectively with just this Pokemon. Now, Pokemon that this pair with, aside from Great Tusk, are going to be things like Fluttermane. Fluttermane pairs very well into this particular Pokemon because you're able to rotate into like Fighting. Fighting is a huge weakness for this particular Pokemon, and you're able to kind of wall out that issue by just rotating in Fluttermane and then Moonblasting next turn, right? Another Pokemon that this doesn't like is Iron Hands. Mainly because Iron Hands has counters to both the main Terra type as well as the standard type, right? Drain Punch plays very well into this, as well as Wild Charge. So, considering the fact that this is able to kind of handle this Pokemon very, very effectively, Great Tusk, again, plays just very well with it, because if you're Terraing and you're going to take a Wild Charge next turn, like maybe you expect the Drain Punch, you Terra, you take the Drain Punch, next turn they're going to Wild Charge into you, rotating Great Tusk, and you don't take any damage from that hit at all. Other Pokemon, Goldango works very well with this Pokemon. It doesn't take any damage from Sandstorm. It is able to rotate into Fighting type attacks. Super, super nice Pokemon for playing with Tyranitar. Now, another thing just to briefly touch on, just to very, very quickly touch on, I do think there is an argument to be made for Ghost Terra type Tyranitar still. This is a very, very solid option still because it makes you immune to the super effective Fighting type attacks. Very solid option still. Especially considering I made a video yesterday talking about this, the increase in Perish Song that we're going to see. This allows you to rotate out of Shadow Tag, which is incredibly nice into that particular matchup. So it's just something to note in terms of going for an alternate Terra type on this particular Pokemon, something that could just be a little bit beneficial for you. That also makes your Terra Blast super effective into things like Screamtail, Fluttermane, and Gothitelle, which makes you a huge threat to those Pokemon. So just something to note with that. You could opt to go for the Ghost Terra typing. It's not something you're seeing as much of, but it's still a very solid Terra typing for this particular Pokemon. So that is going to be it for this video, guys. I hope you found it entertaining and helpful, and if you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for daily competitive Pokemon content from me in the future. I think Tyranitar is just going to be a Pokemon that keeps popping up, not super commonly, but on very certain teams. Again, with Great Tusk, you're likely going to see it a fair bit. But I think it's a Pokemon that just fits so well into stuff that is super popular right now. Another one I didn't mention that just came to mind, Arcanine doesn't like taking Rock Slides, right? So there's a lot of Pokemon right now that just don't like this Pokemon with the moves that it typically is running. A lot of Pokemon just don't deal with this super effectively. So something to note, it's something to really think about adding to a team in the future. Also, check out the Discord. People are over there hanging out playing Pokemon all the time. If you want to see more from me, check out this video where I talk about the biggest problem with competitive Pokemon Scarlet and Violet right now. Really interesting video. Definitely check it out. Also, check out this other video where I talk about Perish Song and how to counter that particular team style in Series 2. We're seeing an increase of it. Wolfie won Orlando with it. Definitely going to be popping up a lot more, and you need to know how to handle it. So check that out as well. But until next time, peace.